Hey everybody, Darren with CahillArmory.com. Today we're just going to be talking about two of my favorite pistols and kind of hitting on the weak spots of these guns. Before we go on with the video, both handguns have been safety checked. As we all know, dealing with handguns, safety is of utmost importance. Please treat all handguns or any gun as if they're loaded at all times. Okay, that being said, the Beretta 92FS and the SIG 226, both chambered in 9mm Luger or Parabellum. Like I said, two of my favorite handguns. No, I'm not a Glock fan. Yeah, I know I'll get some responses back on that. It's not that they're not great guns, so don't hound me too much over it. The Glock grip just does not fit my hand properly. I don't like the way the angle of the grip is. And I'm not unique in that. There's a lot of people that say the same thing. So, that being said, the SIG 226, this particular model here is the one I carry when I work. I still work part-time for the Sheriff's Department. This has the SIG night sights. It's not the Navy SEAL pistol, although I do have a couple of those in my personal collection. And really the only difference in the Navy SEAL version of the 226 and the police version of the commercial or civilian version, excuse me, is the Navy version. Some of the internals are phosphorus coated for rust resistance for salt water and different harsh environment use. And here we have the this particular gun here is the 92FS. It's not the M9. And there's very few differences in the commercial version M9 to the military. The 92FS features 3-dot combat sights. The M9 has a contrast sight, single dot on the back, dot on the front. Very few differences. Some of the original M9s and 92FSs, the dust cover on the 92FS was slanted. The original design on the AFS. The M9 has always been flat, so there's very little difference in the gun. It's a cosmetic. Overall, the guns are identical. M9 92FS. Now, the 9mm cartridge, I know some people swear by them, some swear at them, and it's an ongoing argument, but that's really not what we're going to talk about right now. We're just talking about the guns and the primary Achilles heel of the SIG 226 and the 92FS or M9. We're going to start with the 226. Like most guns, there's a weak point, and the Glocks have them too. It's, with the Glocks, it's a lot like, the rails. Rails can come up out of the frames. They're molded into the polymer frames. You see those issues. I mean, it's not prevalent in any of the guns, these issues we're talking about. But we're going to kind of touch on the main part that you might break in a 226 and a 92FS. Like I said, starting with the SIG 226 here. The firing pin retaining pin, which is the pin you'll see that runs through the slide just behind the breech block here. It holds the firing pin in place so that the pin doesn't basically fall out of the gun. So what you get with the firing pin retaining pin is it sets through the slide like this, and when you fire the gun, the firing pin goes forward, strikes the primer, then the spring forces it back. Well, that pin also stops it when it travels back. So it stops it from over travel and stops it when it comes back to reset the firing pin. So the firing pin retaining pin in the SIG P-Series pistols, every time you fire that gun, that pin gets battered going and coming. So it gets hit both ways. So that pin right there, SIG, the initial rolled slide had a roll pin instead of a solid pin like this design here. They've since went back to a roll pin design. They say that it's a little stronger, but it's still a sacrificial piece, if you will. If you knock it out, you're supposed to replace it. So, and that pin does have to be removed if you're going to replace the firing pin, or if you've got a really dirty gun that's been fired thousands of rounds, that pin will have to be removed to remove the firing pin. But that pin right there is subject to break on a 226, any of the P-Series pistols. SIG states that this solid pin has a expected life of 20,000 rounds or so. So most civilian shooters won't even approach that in the gun through a lifetime. So now, but that is a problem that can arise with the 226. Now with the 92 FS Rim 9, it's the locking block. The locking block is when you roll the slide or let the slide come forward on a Beretta, you'll notice that there's two lugs that pop up here in these cutouts in the slide. That's your locking block. So every time you fire and that gun, the slide comes in, returns in the battery to fire again, that locking block comes up and it does what it says. It's a locking block. Beretta design. A lot of their guns have the same style design. That locking block is prone to break. It's a maintenance part. It's very easy to fix, but it can, the ears on the locking block can shear off. They'll crack. So that's one part of these guns that maintenance is kind of required. You need to keep an eye on them and check them. So with that being said, we're going to move the camera here and zoom in. I'm going to take the Beretta apart and I'm going to show you the locking block. And with the 226, I'm going to basically just pull the slide off and we'll show you a little bit of that, how it works, but we're not going to take it out because it's a bear to get those pins out. Hey guys, now that I got the camera set up, I hope you can see this. What I want to show you is the firing pin retaining pin here. If you can see it, one side's smooth and you get to the other end, it's a little bit swelled or a little bit larger, and it has like splines on it like a gear. Okay, well, the reason that is that pin, if you ever have to replace it, it comes out right to left. And in order to knock that pin out, you'll have to have, well, you won't have to have, but you should have a cup-tipped punch. Brownell sells one that is perfect for these. It's a 3mm cup-tip punch. And that pin, like I said, goes out from right to left, and you'll have to put that slide in a vise. You have to lock it in that way, and your cup-tip punch will set just like that on your firing pin retaining pin. And you can tap it out with a hammer, preferably if you've got a press that somebody can press it out. It's a lot easier. But this one here, I just replaced this one, and I used a vise and a punch, and that's what I had to buy this tool for. Very, very, very simple. But what this pin does is, here's your firing pin, and it sits inside the 226 just like this. And that pin sets in there. There's where it sets. So there's where you get your battering, firing, the spring brings it back. So every time you fire this gun, that pin gets it going and coming. So that's why that pin will break occasionally on these guns. And a lot of times, one of the only ways you'll know that the pin is broke is it'll start to work its way out on this side or start backing out over here. And that's just because the pin might be broke plumb in two in the middle. So that's definitely a good indication that pin is broke. Oh, sorry about that. So if you can look here underneath the slide, you'll see, if you can see this right here on your slide's cut out right here and right here. This piece right here is where that pin comes through. And there's your safety. That as you pull the trigger, this disengages the safety, which lets the firing pin travel forward to fire the gun. Pretty much basic design, pretty much like a Series 80 1911 design. Berettas have the same thing. But like I said, it's not a very tricky fix. It's just a little tough. Like I said, remember, if you have to replace this pin, It's right to left, and it goes back in left to right with the splines on this side, and it'll go in that way. Those splines are what hold it in. So you also have to remove this piece here to get the firing pin out. All that'll come out once you get that busted loose and the firing pin will move. This will come out. So, like I said, it's a pretty simple fix. If you're not sure about it, any gunsmith will fix it. Fairly quickly and cheaply. I suggest if you have SIGs, that you purchase some of these extra firing pin retaining pins, whether you have the roll pin style or the solid style like this, because that is a maintenance item. It does need replaced occasionally. So that being said, that's pretty much, other than your normal springs, your recoil springs, hammer springs and such, on the SIGs, there's not a lot of maintenance to do these guns. Keep a thin coat of grease on the slide rails. Keep them oiled and clean, and these guns will run. They'll run for years just the way they are. You'll never have any trouble with them. Okay, I'm going to reset the camera here real quick and get the Beretta out. Guys, now on the Beretta 92FS or M9, the piece we was talking about is the locking block. You'll find that right here under the barrel. And as you can see, when this gun operates, you have the plunger, locking block plunger, which is just that pin. That's the articulation of it when it's operating. And these are the locking block ears or lugs that can break. Now, there again, the military torture test or stress test or whatever you call it, they put these guns under. These locking blocks have an estimated service life of over 17,000 rounds before they need replaced. But that doesn't mean that you could have a gun that has 500 rounds in it and one of these break, because metallurgy could be bad. You get different problems with metal. It's just like anything that's man-made. It could have an issue, a soft spot in it, and it could break. So that's one area that you want to look at on the M9 or the 92FS. As far as when you're cleaning the gun, take it apart, take your recoil spring, take everything out, take a look at your locking block. Take a look right here around the edges. Look for any stress fractures or cracks that you might see in them. And if you would, that is a very easy fix. If you look right here, there's a small roll pin. That roll pin just taps out. That lets this pin come out, which will let this locking block slide out sideways. That clears it, and it's a very simple fix. It goes back in the same way it comes out, and you can get the Midwest Gunworks or MGW sells these. They're a Beretta dealer as far as parts go, and Beretta, you can buy these locking blocks for around $30 for replacement. So I suggest if you have Berettas in your arsenal, you may have you one of these on hand. If you have 2 or 3 Berettas, have you a couple of these. I mean, it's a small price to pay to have peace of mind and knowing you can keep your firearm in working order. It's a 5-minute fix. By the time you take the gun apart, tap this roll pin out, replace your parts, tap your pin back in, and the kit that they sell does come with the plunger, roll pin, and locking block, so you can put all new parts back in it. Like I said, that's really it on the 92 FS or M9 too. So that's one of your basic maintenance items with that gun. And like I said, with the SIG, firing pin, retaining pin, with the Beretta, it's the locking block on the barrel. So that's the two areas of these guns you keep an eye on. Keep them running. So that's just something you might want to keep an eye on as you shoot your guns. And it gets a little bit of age, wear and tear on them, but it's not a hard fix. It's easy on both guns. Definitely the SIG is a harder fix with this pin because they're bare to get out. This is simple. That's simple. Even if you're not a gunsmith at all, you can fix a Beretta in 5 minutes. With the SIG, sometimes this pin, especially the initial, the factory pin that's set in it, can be a little tough to get out. I probably shouldn't have replaced this one when I did, but I went ahead and done it. I bought this gun used. I do carry this gun when I work, so I wanted to go ahead and make sure I had a fresh pin in it. So, and I kind of wanted to experiment to see how hard it was, and it wasn't hard at all. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. And like I said, like, share, and subscribe below. And look forward to making some more videos for you. And I hope you found this one helpful. Thanks again.